Pretty
Line the roll up? Oh, yeah, that's okay. How you doing, sir? Good to see you. Absolutely.
Part of it is, I'll bet you one of these have to do is
yeah, it's Oxnard, but it's called like Channel Island.
yeah, I'll tell you what, I don't care what you say about it. More of the guys who you know, I mean, I'm New Orleans is crazy, right? I mean, it's all like my. You know what? When I first walk into a situation like this, I go right back to high school and I'm like super shy. But then as soon as I talk to like 2 or 3 people, I like.
On an attempt to prayer, I wasted a lot of prayer today for Ohio State. I hope I do better tonight. Okay. Father, we acknowledge your goodness and mercy to all of us. We're grateful that you have abundantly blessed in so many different ways, and especially with Powell Chiropractic and all their many ministries. We thank you for them. We rejoice in the healings received from you through them. And for this get-together tonight, we rejoice. May the food strengthen us to your service and faithful commitment. And all this we come to you in the name of Christ our Lord. Amen. Amen.
Dr. Powell to ask his blessing for my wife Heather's hand in marriage. He said, only if you become a chiropractor. So here I am today. Welcome, everybody.
So one of the things that we would like to explain or give you some understanding in is who we are as Powell Chiropractic Clinic. And so we call it our core values. And these core values are very specific. So I'm going to start off with the very first one, which is Rudy. So who here has seen the movie Rudy? So if you've seen Rudy, you understand that he knew he was never going to put a Notre Dame uniform on and play in a game. But he gave it his absolute everything he had for the purpose of the team. So not just Dr. Null and I, my dad began that giving of himself from the very beginning, and all of the staff that we have all do the exact same thing. So it's very unique that our core value has expanded, kind of like the rippling effect of a pebble into a pond.
You got it, Doc. So back when Dr. Powell first started practice, there was a employee that he had that anytime she was asked to do anything at any time, her response was, you got it, Doc. And so that's the commitment of the employees we have, all the people in our family. Really, they're not employees, they're family members to all of us.
Right.
That they go above and beyond to do whatever's called of them. Even if they don't feel comfortable with it, they find a way to make it happen.
So another core value that we have is one face. Now, in this particular area of time that we're in, truth happens to be in a very limited supply. But at Powell Chiropractic Clinic, you get one face, you get one truth. And people hear truth, they understand truth. So one face, we use it as the analogy. So let's say one of my kids wanted a popsicle. They come to Dad and they say, "Can I have a popsicle?" Dad says no. They run to Mom, "Can I have a popsicle?" Mom says yes. That's somebody that's not expressing one face. So everybody at Powell, we try to stay with that core value as one face.
Next is SASSY, which is kind of an acronym for service above self. And so one of the Parkerisms that we use in our clinic is that at our clinic, among the doctors, the staff, and all the family that work for us, is that we want to have a compulsion to serve that is greater than a compassion, or a compassion to serve that is greater than our compulsion to survive.
Which sometimes is challenging. The last one, we have 5 of these values. This is number 5. And the 5th one is tribe. Now, we happen to be Cleveland Indians, and we're going to say Cleveland Indians, not the other word. So, but whether you're a Cleveland Indian ball player or you were an American Indian in that tribe, if you left the tribe, you didn't survive. In a ball squad, you're not going to get to the World Series on pitching or hitting. You got to work together. So everything at Powell, we try to interchange, and we have every person in the team know how to do as best as our possible, as best as we possibly can to do all the other jobs. That cross training gives us this tribe to be able to serve the people that come to the clinic.
Absolutely. So as our main philosophy to sum up these core values and what supports it is that we do everything we can to work with the power that created the body. And so the power that created the body is the power that heals the body. So we heal from the inside out.
And to amplify that theory or that thinking, I heard this just today, and so I thought it was really unique. Warren Buffett was asked to invest a small amount of money in his time frame for a Silicon Valley startup software company. He said no. The company went on to blow the doors off. He was later asked, "Why didn't you invest in that company?" And he said, "Well, it's simple. I have a circle of influence or a circle of things that I'm competent in. The size of the circle doesn't matter. Knowing its boundaries, however, does." He knew that he didn't know anything about software startup because that wasn't where his circle was. So even though it was a great success, he should have put the money in because you look at what they did, he knew what he could do. So at Powell, if we could help you, we know it, we're inside this circle. If we don't feel that we could be of service to you, your family, or anyone at the clinic, we would put that person in front of the care that we would send our own families to, whether it be a surgeon or a different doctor. And that's just something that we've always done. Dad started that 51 years ago, and we've continued to do it.
So why do we do what we do? We are here to provide help to the hurting people or the hurting individuals naturally. And of course, looking at all the people that are in this room tonight, there's a lot of folks here that have come to us and we've been able to help. And that's why we do what we do. I mean, it's the love concept. You know, people come to us as chiropractors. We move some bones around in the spine and the body heals itself. And it's miraculous.
And then the question is that, you know, where are we going? One of the ways that we describe it, and this may be funny to a lot of you, but we say Monday is the new Friday. And what do we mean by that? We're so excited to show up for work Monday morning We don't even call it work. Say, we're going to the clinic. And I'm so excited to get up and get there. I can't wait to see who's coming in, what can we do, and I feel that that our staff has the same pulse. It's such a unique fit. So we're very blessed, and we're thankful that all of you are here to be part of this event. So,
Absolutely.
I have to go to cards, sorry.
Cards.
So we're going to introduce Dr. Gilles Lamarche. He's a personal close friend of mine. In 1979, he graduated from Canadian Memorial Chiropractic College, and then by 1980, he was already on the platform doing seminars to other doctors. He's been an influential chiropractic leader his entire career. One of the things that struck me is that as I looked at our core values, I said, Gilles is Rudy. He's the guy and behind the scenes many times working diligently to make sure that that team flourishes without any seeking of the spotlight or any of that. And because he didn't seek it, it found him. And so we're absolutely just honored, and it's a privilege to bring Dr. Gilles Lamarche up to begin this seminar.
I've had the honor and the pleasure of knowing, I guess, Papa Powell for probably like close to 40 years. Sounds like a long time, doesn't it? But I want to follow through with what Dr. Chip and Dr. Jimmy were talking about. Do you know that America has been in a healthcare crisis for probably some 3 to 5 decades? Not 3 to 5 years, 3 to 5 decades. Americans make up about 5% of the world population, yet consume more than 50% of drugs prescribed worldwide. If there was health in a pill, America should be healthy. Do you agree? America should be healthy. But America is not. When you look at the World Health Organization statistics, when you look at all the metrics that can be measured, America ranks somewhere between the 37th to the 39th of healthiest countries on the planet. If that makes sense to you, I'd be worried, because it makes no sense to me. So I was fortunate enough, at the age of 12, to have a teacher pull the chair from underneath me. And I landed on my bottom and I hurt my back. Yeah, you heard me say I was fortunate enough. And so they called my mother. I ended up going home, went to the emergency department, saw the physician, started taking medication. 6 months later, this 12-year-old kid is still like walking like this, not quite normal. And someone said to my mom, "You should take Gilles to a chiropractor." And I was there, and she said, "What's a chiropractor?" Nobody in my family had ever been to a chiropractor, so that's 54 years ago. And so she ended up taking me to the chiropractor, and after a very thorough examination, consultation, x-rays, etc., I went back the next day, and he explained that he had found multiple problems with my spine and nervous system. And he related one as being a recent one, which was probably the injury that I'd suffered when the teacher pulled the chair from underneath me. As a joke, by the way. I was in an all-boys school, and I was getting picked on, and he picked on me. And then he talked about these other issues that he found in my spine, and he started relating my spine to my organic systems. And I'm looking at this guy, and I would tell you I was not a sick child, but I was an unwell child. Since birth, I always had, issues with constipation, throwing up. Still at the age of 12, I had constant pain in my belly, and I'd been to all sorts of doctors. They all told me there was nothing wrong with me. So this chiropractor started getting me adjusted. So I started getting adjusted. And I will tell you, if anybody ever tells you they don't believe in chiropractic, who cares? I didn't believe in chiropractic either. I laid on this guy's table. I just wanted him to get rid of my back pain so I could go back to running, so I could go back to my track and field classmates, my teammates. And even though I didn't believe that this man could help me in any which way, other than maybe help get rid of my back pain, within a couple months, not only was my back pain gone, but I had no problems with indigestion, no problem with elimination. It was like I discovered this whole new great world that I didn't even know existed. which I should have known as a 12-year-old. But you know what's happening today? Kids are having issues like that when they're 1 and 2 and 3 and 4, and now they're getting medicated and medicated and medicated. So that's why I said I was so fortunate to discover that. And I remember the day I looked at my chiropractor and said, when I'm big, I'm going to be like you. And I directed my thought process. I'm going to finish high school. I'm going to go to undergrad. I'm going to become a chiropractor. And off I went and I became a chiropractor. And I would tell you 42 years later, I am still as excited to be a chiropractor today as I was the day I got my acceptance letter to go to chiropractic college. You say, well, how's that possible? I saw thousands of people get well under chiropractic care when other methods have failed. I have a now 36-year-old son who was seriously injured at 14. So I'd like you to think back, where were you on July 1st, 1999? And most of you are going to go, how can I remember that? I don't know what I had for lunch yesterday, right? Well, you probably can't remember because it's not a significant date for you. It's a significant date for me and my family because on that day, in Canada, we celebrate Canada Day. Like in America, we celebrate Independence Day, 3 days apart. So we had gotten ready at our lake house for this big party we're going to have with the entire family the next day. And I was sort of tired. My son was there with his best buddy, Matthew. My other 2 kids were in town. And I was like, Dad's tired. I'm just going to go to bed and, just be good. Where we're from in northern Canada, like 9:30, 10 o'clock in June, it's still like daytime outside. So I said, you can't go on the lake, stay off the jet skis, everything they need to do. And I went to bed. Shortly thereafter, I heard boom, boom. And I woke up just sort of long enough to think, oh, they must have taken some of the fireworks for tomorrow's party. And I just went back to sleep. And as my neighbor would later tell me, about 20 seconds later, I heard a third boom. But it's not the boom that woke me up. It was the sound of my son's voice screaming, help, I can't see. And my body innately knew where my son was. I jumped out of bed. I ran down to the lakefront. We were 88 steps down. So our house was 88, right on a rock cap. And I saw Christopher standing there in shock with fire still coming off his face. And I don't know how I did that, but I grabbed him by the seat of his pants and the scruff of his neck, and I literally dunked his head in the water to put the fire out. And I walked him up. I carried him up those steps, wrapped his face in ice, because we had coolers on the deck for the next day, beer and sodas, that kind of stuff. And I took him into the hospital. We got there, and I was told, your son is blind. We looked at his eyeballs. His eyeballs were burnt 50% into the vitreous. So if you think of an eyeball, his eyeball was completely burnt halfway into the eyeball. I looked at his eyes. But my kids were all raised in the chiropractic paradigm. That's all they knew. So prior to seeing his eyes through this special apparatus that they have called a slit lamp, he had said, Dad, can you check me? In the kids' language, check me means, can you check my spine, make sure I'm okay? Because they understand how the nervous system works. And I had done that. But I'll tell you, when a doctor comes and he tells a father who did not lock up the fireworks that his son's going to be blind for the rest of his life, it's not a happy day. And we ended up flying him to Toronto Sick Children's Hospital because there's no ophthalmologist where we're from. Traveling one, but not for a few days. Saw 2 ophthalmologists there. They told me that your son is going to be blind for the rest of his life. We then saw a team of plastic surgeons. 3 of them looked at him and they said, 2 or 3 surgeries, we should be able to fix him up. What had happened is that he had read the cartridge and it said that there were 2 blasts. But unfortunately there were 3, which is that time delay between the second and the third. He reached down to grab it, to dip it in the water, and the 3rd blast went off. When it hit him, the blast hit him in the face, went into his nose and came out of his mouth. So he's completely burnt, soft palate, sinuses, everything completely burnt. His nose looked like a very, very crispy marshmallow that you cook on a campfire. So they were going to have to rebuild his nose. And the head plastic surgeon says to me, but we can't keep him here. He should not travel because he was obviously in a lot of pain. So he was medicated, which, by the way, that's what that's for. So I allowed him to have medication, injectable medication for his pain. And she said, but I can't keep him here. And these were her words, a quote. She said, the worst thing that can happen to him is to get an infection. And if he does, it's going to make our work difficult, which will make it very, very difficult on him. She says, you know what? Because this is where all the bugs live. Those were her words. So I checked him out, checked into a hotel in Toronto. And we're innately driven, right? There are things we do because we just do it. We don't necessarily think about it. But when we got into the room, I automatically took the pillows away from the headboard. I tucked in the blanket at the headboard. I untucked it at the footboard. And I helped my son get into bed. Sleeping 18, 19, 20 hours. All I could give him was a little bit of like chicken broth. Didn't want to eat, nothing. He was in pain. But every time my son moaned, and every parent here can attest to that, it doesn't matter the age of a child. If Jimmy was not well, and he was in Papa and Donna's house, and he moaned, she would be there. He would be there. Every time Christopher moaned, I would get up, and every time he moaned, I would check his upper cervical spine, and every time he needed the same adjustment. And I couldn't figure out why. I'm a good chiropractor. He shouldn't need that same adjustment. But his body was under so much stress from this injury that every time I got up, I kept adjusting him. I'd adjust him again. And I would tell you that I probably adjusted him, on average, the first couple of days, probably 20 times. Almost every hour in the hour. Every time he moaned, I was up. And on the Wednesday, he wakes up, and I sit beside him on the bed, and he says, Dad, do you have a blue shirt on? I said, yeah, why? He said, because until today, when I opened my eyes, it was like there was nothing in front of me, but now it looks like there's a color. Look, I saw his eyeballs in this slit lamp. Like, this kid is blind. And I was raised in a home, my mother was blind. So the appreciation in my family for sight was like a huge deal. I mean, I was devastated. As God is my witness, that night I had the TV on and he could tell me everything that he saw on the screen. Yeah, oh wow, right? I was like, what? I said, what color is the car? Red. What color dress is the lady wearing? Blue. What color is this? I was like, and I mean, I started shaking. I'm on my knees. I'm holding my child, and I'm crying like a baby. And he says to me, what's the matter, Dad? I said, you can see. He said, Dad, did you think I was going to be blind forever? I said, yes. He said, Dad, the power that made the body heals the body. It happens no other way. So here's a 14-year-old kid who's teaching his father, who's supposed to know all that. But what did I buy into? I understand anatomy. I bought into what I saw. And I forgot that the power that made the body heals the body. Because we went back to the hospital on the Monday. The same two ophthalmologists looked at him and was like, it's a miracle. He's got 20/20 vision. You guys must pray a lot. I said, yeah, we pray. But I said, let me tell you why I think he has his vision. They went, nah. And I finally walked away. But I'll tell you, by the time we got to the plastic surgical suite, there was already chatter in this huge hospital that the kid that came in here blind could see. And then we walk into the surgical suite, or we're sitting in the surgical suite, the same surgical team walks in, and the head surgical plastic surgeon, she's looking at Christopher, she was like, oh my gosh, look at him, what have you done to him? And I was like, what do you mean? She said, look, he's got like normal epithelial cells growing, and she's calling her colleagues, come and see this. I don't think he's gonna need any surgery. And she's like sort of like freaking out. And she says, what have you been giving him? Right? I said, nothing other than water and chicken broth. Well, what have you been putting on the wound? I said, nothing. I've been taking a Q-tip, as you said, and I take the dead cells away, as you said I should be doing. She was like, it's a miracle. And I said to her, so why don't you ask me what I've been doing? She looked at me, she was like, okay. I said, I'm a chiropractor. And she looks at me, she went, so? I said, can I ask you a few questions? She said, sure. I said, if you think back to medical school, what do you remember your professors telling you was the most important system in the human body? She knew. the average person on the street doesn't. She said, the nervous system. I said, you're absolutely right. I said, and what does the nervous system control? She said, everything. I said, including immune system function, right? She's like, oh, I don't know about that. Well, fortunately, I had just read a book by Dr. Candace Pert out of Baylor University in Houston called Molecules of Emotion, where she talked about all that. And I had all that data like just stuck in my head. So I basically threw that up on her. And she looked at me, she was like, wow, I've never learned that. And so my son and I walked out of that hospital, and within less than 45 days, my son, with no interventions other than great chiropractic care from the best chiropractor on the planet at the time, is that right? We all say that. Like Jimmy's the best chiropractor on the planet. So is Jimmy, and so is Chip. But we walked out of the hospital, and within about 45 days, he didn't have a mark on his face. And if this kid walked in here today, he's 6 foot, he's about 220, he's got arms like massive child, he could tell you his story, and people are dumbfounded. They go, that's impossible. He said, well, it was my story. It's a real story. And I got to live that. And so, of course, that brought me to an even higher level of faith, confidence, and belief in the product, the service, the ideas that we deliver in a chiropractic office, and an even greater appreciation for the power that made the body heals the body, right? I mean, I had healed as a 12-year-old. I saw all these people, but now all of a sudden, this is personal. This isn't like my baby. He's my third child, but he was like my baby. Gets well. And I guess that wasn't quite enough for me to get to the level of having 100% certainty. In the spring of 2003, 4 years later, I got diagnosed with a terminal condition. The word terminal means it's going to end, and it's going to end quickly. It was called primary pulmonary hypertension. I won't get into that. Secondary diagnosis, cardiomegaly, which is an enlarged heart, 2.5 times its normal size. And I was having major trouble breathing. I mean, just in my office, I was having trouble adjusting patients. And one day, one of my staff called a buddy of mine who's a physician, and he called me that night and he said, hey, if I made a promise to someone, you're the only person who could help me fulfill my promise, would you do whatever it takes to help me? I said, of course I would. That's what friends do. He said, great, I'll see you tomorrow in my office at 4 o'clock. And he hung up the phone. That's when we used to hang up the phone, like on the wall. He hung up the phone. So I thought, oh, she called him. So I ended up in his office, got diagnosed with this terminal condition, and the prognosis was, you will be dead in 2 years or less unless you agree to a double lung and heart transplant. I was 48 years old. I had been what I thought was healthy most of my life. And now I was being told, if you want to live, you're going to have to succumb to that. So I did all the research on the condition, I did all the research on the procedures. They basically said, do nothing, you'll be dead in 2 years, get the transplant, you might be good for 5. And it would take me down a completely different rabbit hole, a different paradigm, lots of drugs, continuous anti-rejection drugs, et cetera, et cetera. Prayed about it for a couple of weeks after I did all my research, and I came to the answer that I've had a beautiful life. I'm grateful, and if this is God's calling for my life and it's time for me to transition, I'm just going to transition. And so on the 14th of April in 2004, I went home to prepare myself to die. I did what people do when they know they're going to die. I did everything, all my financial planning for my children. I planned my funeral. I chose the songs I wanted to sing because I wanted them to have a party. I was like, don't cry because I'm gone. I came here. I'm just grateful that I got to come and have a good time and get to meet great people. And on the 15th of May, 31 days later, I woke up, and I won't tell you the words that came into my mind. They're not very Christian. They were not nice words. But you're a beep, beep, beep idiot. You've been preaching this chiropractic paradigm of health and healing for 25 years. There must be something seriously wrong with your spine and nervous system. And I thought, I'm a chiropractor. How could that be? I get checked by a chiropractor every couple of weeks. And then it was the third thought. Never by the same chiropractor. Just buddies. Go out and have a meal, go to your office, come to my office, I check you, you check me. You may not check me for another 6 months. I was not under regular chiropractic care. I had not been under regular chiropractic care good chiropractic care like you get at the Powell Clinic, I had not been under regular chiropractic care for more than 30 years. So when all the noise died down, I was like, I got to go and get checked. Well, lo and behold, I go and get a thorough examination, x-rays, nerve scan, everything to find out what's going on. And my spine looked pretty good, except from C7 to T4. A little bump when you run your hand down your neck, that little bump is C7, and 4 levels lower, that my spine at that level was a complete mess. I had a very large practice. I'm not a big guy. I had a lot of blue-collar workers in my practice, and what I believe is I beat myself up a little bit at a time. And I had no symptom as it relates to my spine or musculoskeletal system, but my heart and my lungs were shutting down. And if you've been educated and you've looked at the charts, I'm sure at the clinic, the nerves, the electrical wires, right? Your nerves are electrical wires. The electrical wires that bring the power to your heart and lungs exit your spine between T1 and T4. And that area of my spine was a complete mess. I started getting adjusted every day. Sounds like a lot, doesn't it? It's a commitment. Because when I told this young chiropractor who had purchased my practice, a couple, what I wanted looking at the results of the exams, she said, well, every day for how long? And I didn't even have to think about it. I said, until I die or until I thrive, I don't have a lot of options. This was my last option. And my pulmonary pressure, for those of you who have an interest in that, was measured, it was 57. You don't need to know all the details, but the normal is 15. Which means the back pressure from my lungs to my heart was 4 times greater than what the heart is built to pump. And so my body adapted. What does that mean? My heart grew 2.5 times its normal size, and then when it can no longer adapt because there's just no more room in my chest for my heart to grow anymore, that's when my symptoms started. So my body had been ill, if you like, with 0 symptoms, maybe for 5 to 10 years. So getting adjusted every day for whatever time it takes, I didn't really care. But within 3 months, my pulmonary pressure had dropped to 27. Within 1 year, my pulmonary pressure was normal. Within 2 years, I no longer had cardiomegaly. So what happens? The back pressure stress to my heart caused the heart to grow in its size. When the stress was removed by giving the right amount of power, the way God designed us to be, my heart didn't have to work that hard anymore. So my heart shrunk back to its normal size. So I'm healthier now at almost 67 than I was at 48. So I look at life as I've been given like a new lease of sorts, right? Which is why loving service, my first technique, which is something that we learned at seminars where we actually met 40 years ago, has been sort of my mantra for years, but that mantra became even more fervent than it's ever been. So I will literally go anywhere. When Jimmy called me, I was like, sure, I'm available that weekend, sure, I'm coming. He said, how much do I have to pay you? I said, nothing. What? I said, you're my friend. I want to help people. And so for all of you who are under regular chiropractic care, keep it up. Just keep it up. And for those who've never been under chiropractic care, because there may be some of you who have not, get a good exam from a few great chiropractors in this room. And give yourself an opportunity to discover what you were truly meant to live during this lifetime on this planet. It is powerful. And I would tell you, even with the pastor sitting here, I don't believe that my healing is a miracle. What I believe is that this is the miracle. You are the miracle. Individually, we are the miracle because this is how God designed us. The best engineer ever designed you. And somewhere in 1895, helped D.D. Palmer discover that he could be a servant to the master by recognizing that the power that made the body heals the body, provided there's no interference. So my job as a chiropractor, I'm no longer in practice. I'm the vice president of Life University in Marietta, Georgia, the largest chiropractic college in the world. And I'm there having fun, just trying to impact, the future. the future chiropractors that are coming to replace all of us, because we're all going to be replaced at some point. You know, a little later than us, but you know, some of the young guys in here. But I urge you to, just keep the relationship going with the Powells. I mean, they're honest, great, loving people of integrity. That's certainly how I've seen them my entire life since I've known them. And it's an honor for me to stand before you and share the story and close out with the way Dr. Jim and Dr. Chip closed out. I always remember that the power that made the body heals the body. It happens no other way.
That was great, Jill. Thank you very much. Very inspirational. I wanted to acknowledge our staff this evening and how great these people are, and all the ladies and people that work for us and how outstanding they are. So I'm just gonna, if you all would stand, please, and I can acknowledge each one of you here. So we have all our fine ladies here. If we could all say hello, give them a round of applause. Without them, we couldn't do what we do. Absolutely. So we have Amanda in the back. Hello, Amanda. And we have Jamie. And we have Marina and Miss Holly. And we have Elisa and Brittany and Julia in the back there. And Renee, of course. Thank you guys. And Melanie couldn't be here tonight, so, but another great one of ours, so thanks very much, girls. There he is.
So our next speaker is Dr. Tim Novelli. Now, Tim has become a very, very close friend of mine. He's been a friend of my dad and the Powell family for many, many years. And he's one of the leaders in our community. He started a group because he saw a need. And he's going to get into that need a little bit after I show you just a brief 5-minute video that describes this need that he has helped fulfill. The Patriot Project was created in North Canton, Ohio by a gentleman that's not in the military, and neither was his family. So to have this kind of an impact across this nation, it's amazing what has happened when someone is dedicated and consistent with their direction. So we talked about our core values. One of our core values is SASSY, right? Service above self. So Dr. Tim Novelli embodies service above self. So I'm going to show you this quick video, and then Tim's going to come up and give us some information. The absolute sassiest guy you're ever going to meet, Dr. Tim Novelli.
Thank you. Let me add my congratulations to the Powell family. When I started in practice, Dr. Jim, you were one of the doctors I tried to emulate. He shows the young doctors in the community and throughout the country, really, that you can still be successful and maintain your dignity and integrity, and big shoes to fill. And I said it's an honor to be your colleague. Thank you. So let me introduce, my name is Dr. Timothy Petiti Novelli. I'm a chiropractor and I'm a patriot. But I'm not just a yellow ribbon patriot that puts a bumper sticker on my car and says I support our troops. But nor have I ever been a warrior that's put life and limb on the line for his country. Now, I always thought I'd have a military career from a young age, in fact. I can remember 5th grade, if you were a good enough kid, you got to pick out 2 45s. Most of you know what 45s here, I think, are. And you got to bring them to the Christmas party. Well, that was tough, even back then, tough kid. I remember one of the 45s I brought in was The Ballad of the Green Berets by Sergeant Sadler. Tough, I tell you, but full disclosure, maybe I wasn't that tough. The second record I brought in was I Think I Love You by the Partridge Family.
So blame it on Janita McGrill. I don't know which. But like I said, my dream was to go one of the military academies when I was a kid. I worked to that end. I said my dream was to either make a full career out of the military, hopefully become a jet pilot, maybe even become an astronaut. But as things would have it, truth be told, I was probably too short, too slow for Division I football. And the powers that be nominated me for the Merchant Marine Academy. So now we had a dichotomy in belief systems of what my potential and capabilities were in this world and what the powers that be gave me to go with. So I always saw myself as the heir apparent to Captain Kirk. Merchant Marine Academy, they saw me the heir apparent to maybe Captain Stubby, or maybe not even Stubby, maybe he's Isaac or Gopher if you remember the Love Boat. So plan B, I became a chiropractor, and I've had a very blessed life. And I realized I owed that life to the military people who gave us our freedom to choose what we wanted to be, but also to the great chiropractors who came before us, and we could stand on their shoulders and build upon that. So thank you. Thank you very much. I'm a first-generation American, as you could tell by that. That's why I read my middle name. I took my mother's maiden name. My mom was born in Italy, and my father's parents are from Italy. My mom's dad was an Italian Marine, and he tried to escape capture in World War I by the Turks by hiding in the belly of a dead horse. Well, it failed. He was captured. He was thrown to a prisoner of war camp where he was tortured repeatedly. And at the end of the war, he was released, but inside the prisoner of war camp, he contracted tuberculosis. And he died at the young age of 25. But not before bringing his wife, my grandmother, pregnant grandmother at the time, and my mom to the promised land, America. My dad's father came to America as a teenager, and he quickly joined the Army and joined the doughboys in the trenches of World War I, where he suffered the effects of mustard gas and shell shock, or what we know as post-traumatic stress today, all the days of his life. My uncle Dominic, who was conceived in Italy, born in America, joined the Marines in World War II. It was a Marine machine gunner. And in the Battle of Okinawa, 79 days into an 81-day battle, he was shot 3 times and cost him his left lung and part of his right. My uncles, my nephew, my brother all served in the military. My father was a World War II combat engineer, spent 3 years in the jungles of the Philippines, where he was blown up, contracted dysentery, malaria, and he left home a strapping 190-pound athlete and returned back to his family, a 120-pound disabled American veteran who would self-medicate with alcohol for most of his life and died of cirrhosis of the liver a week after my high school graduation. So I know the price of freedom, and my family knows the price of freedom. So just over 9 years ago now, I received a call one night, and it was from one of my amputee patients. It said, hey, it was a Saturday night. He said, hey, I got an American hero, need your help. And I said, hey, I got my Snuggies on. What do you mean? He says, no, it's an American hero. He says, and he said, it turned out to be a former Golden Knight, Dana Bowman. Now, Dana suffered a horrific skydiving accident where he and his dive partner collided at 300 miles an hour, severing Dana's legs in midair and cutting his best friend in half. Dana was driving back from Walter Reed Hospital, where he was recruiting severely wounded men like himself to still give them hope and be part of his program he had going on in Texas. But he couldn't drive any further. He was in such pain. He never had chiropractic care before. And after a very successful experience, he says, wow, this could really help a lot of our guys. And I said, tell me about it. Chiropractors have been trying to be part of the military for over 100 years. And he said, well, I won't tell you exactly what he said. I'll give you the G version, Pastor. The heck with them. Very stern, though. The heck with them. He said, you come to my event in Texas and treat as many of our guys as you'd like. So I took him up on it. I went to Texas, and they put me in an airfield because they were doing hog hunts from helicopters. And I was under a canopy in the hot Texas sun, working 14 hours, 3 days I was there, 14 hours, and it was cathartic. I mean, I saw over 150 patients, and these were America's finest who were hooked on drugs. Before anyone was ringing the opioid crisis bell, we saw firsthand what was happening. I said, Doc, I'm hooked on these drugs. You know, I had back pain, they gave them to me, I had headaches, things that chiropractors see in our office every day with such great success. And so I knew there was no going back home to my regular life, a life that was made possible by these men and women I left behind in Texas. So we started, that was the inspiration for the Patriot Project. We then started growing like-minded from that one day in Texas, growing to Powell's have been with me. Thank you so much from day one, and helped me grow and helped me reach our goals. I said, we now serve, we have over 9,200 doctors now. We estimate we need 20,000 to 25,000 to meet the demand of the military that they're calling. The military, the United States military conglomerate, I don't know, there used to be 100, now there may be 200 or 300 chiropractors that they subcontract. Remember, we have over 9,200 and we can't meet the demand. So everyone who serves isn't shot or blown up, but anyone and everyone who carries a 70-pound rucksack along with body armor and a weapon suffers musculoskeletal injuries. And we know we want to be part of the team to be commissioned, to be on forward operating bases, to help these men perform better. My background before I started the Patriot Project was all with athletes, world-class athletes. High school, but I worked with Olympians and professional athletes most of my career. And they knew they didn't just get adjusted, as you guys were testament, that they didn't just want to have injuries, they wanted to perform their best. So they knew the secret that, again, getting adjusted could help them perform better. And millimeters and milliseconds in the sports world, for these men, meant the difference sometimes of a Super Bowl ring or a gold medal. But in the military and battle, millimeters and milliseconds, if we improve their performance, means a difference of life and death. So that's why it's so important for us to be commissioned in the military, and that's one of our big goals in the Patriot Project, to do that. So we're working towards that. In fact, we head to Washington, D.C., not this week, next week, to meet with heads of the Department of Defense and things like that to try to get us commissioned. Because since the year 2000, Congress passed a law that can commission chiropractors. But since that time, not one chiropractor has been commissioned. So we know that, again, there's still bias and prejudice in the military, just like everywhere else. But times are changing. Thought we were going to get an executive order with the last administration, but that didn't happen. So we're still hopeful that things will get done. We're moving towards that. But the bottom line is that, you know, America more than ever now needs chiropractic, but we also need patriots. And to be a patriot, as you said, I've never served, but you don't have to don a uniform to be a patriot. You don't have to be a chiropractor to be a patriot. But if you're an accountant and you could help someone with their taxes, one of these families that need help, if you're a scout and you could mow a lawn or babysit, or an employer that could hire a veteran, be a patriot. America needs it now more than ever. So today, especially on 9/11, if you can help raise your glasses with me, I'd like to make a toast. Let me get my glass. First of all, to the 9/11, to the heroes, our first responders who didn't come back that day, to the civilians in Shanksville who brought down that plane and saved our Capitol building, or how many innocent lives, to the men and women who've joined the military because of that. And one of them that we didn't get Dr. Jim asked to talk about, you probably know, is Shiloh Harris, who is one of our chiropractic spokesperson now. That chiropractic saved his life. And he'll tell you, he was ready. He had a gun in his mouth. He didn't want to live anymore because of the pain. But after having successful chiropractic care, he's now with us and a big part of our community. So to those people, I said that, and to our military out there right now who need our prayers, and to other people that I said are serving, and also to the Powells, that their next 50 years are filled with as much success and happiness and joy. So raise your glasses. Thanks for having me. Thank you.
It's a very special honor that we have, to introduce our next speaker. He graduated from Chiropractic College in 1970, National Chiropractic College in Lombard, Illinois. I happened to be 3 years old at the time. I was present at the graduation.
Well, and as I mentioned earlier, the only way I could get into the family was to be a chiropractor, and I'm so glad I did. I mean, Dr. Powell, of course, he gave me my first adjustment, and I mean, it was life-changing. As anyone that that's ever been through chiropractic, as all the people, that's the reason you're all here tonight, know what chiropractic can do. And I always call Dr. Powell the chiropractor's chiropractor. It means the world to me.
Yes. Interestingly enough, we're in Jackson Township, and everybody knows Jackson Township's pretty large as far as square acres or square miles. Dad was the only chiropractor in Jackson Township for 12 years. So he had an impact in this community as it was growing up. He was part of the original Rotary group in Jackson Township. The original took a volunteer fire department and made it a real fire department. Did the same thing with the police department. So he built this community as this community grew, and he served in every aspect that he could. The interesting thing is that when I first graduated from high school, I thought, God forbid, that I'd want to be an attorney. I'm sorry if you're an attorney. I don't really like attorneys anymore. But the reality is that when you're a kid, you watch an LA Law or some stupid influential thing, and you think, oh, I want to do that. So I went to regular college, undergrad, took a biology class, and I was like, hey, this is really cool. And I hated English. So if you're an attorney, you got to love English. I hated English, and it wasn't working for me. So, but the interesting thing is that as I started the process of becoming a chiropractor, people would stop me at Lake Cable or getting groceries or when I would come home from school. You're going to be a chiropractor like your dad? He's changed my life. When you hear somebody say that, you're so proud. And I believe that I've had a blessing to watch him as a mentor, and I believe that I've been able to touch the people that God has sent to our office, and I'm honored to be able to work with him and have him as my father.
Wow. Am I ever blessed or what? Wow, what a great event. I am very touched. I really am. Thank you, Pastor. He has been a leader, pastor, for our clinic, and my dear friend and great mentor. And through struggles and problems we've had in the clinic and personal, the pastor's always been there for us. Dr. LaMarche, we've been spending the last day or two together, and he's not quite as old as I am, but the old guys have stories to tell. So he tells a story, and then I quick tell another story. And it's wonderful, the stories we have to tell, because it's all about people. And Dr. Novelli has a heart as big as he is. And I think about 9,000 plus chiropractors are giving free care to veterans, injured military, and Gold Star families, as we do at Powell. In fact, we see so many, we have to almost put a lid on it because there's so many military that want to come. And in our office, they're treated like the very best. They get examined, they get x-rayed, they get cared for like a patient who was paying full price because we feel responsible to help them. So anybody in here, by show of hands, have somebody in your family that's in the military or somebody you love that's serving in the military? So you understand. We have a grandson who has had 2 tours overseas, one in Afghanistan, one in Iraq. And the closer you get to the military, you realize how valuable these kids are. We can be here tonight on 9/11 with the freedom to enjoy a meal together and talk about our freedom and God's blessings that we have as Americans that people take for granted. But these kids, and they were just children, you know, these soldiers are 18, 19, 20, 22 years old, giving their life so that we could have this freedom. So Dr. Novelli is a hero, as far as I'm concerned. So the Patriot Project is something that has grown out of Canton, Ohio, for him starting this, and not being a military person. But I didn't know your story, Tim, until I heard it tonight. But I understand, because I care more about military than I ever did, because my loved one's involved in the same very thing. So we pray for him regularly that he'll be safe, and we're worried about what's going on in this world, that he doesn't have to go to war. But I read it, and you may have seen it too on the internet, that someone said, I would love for our country to be like September 12th of 2011, of 01, where everybody was a patriot. And you know that everyone knows the song, that you held hands in church with somebody. You called your mom that you haven't talked to in a while. Everyone was so strongly patriotic. They couldn't keep flags in the stores because everybody was proud of America. Look what we've done in 20 years. It's terrible. But I have been so blessed as a chiropractor, and for many, many reasons, with a wonderful family, as you met most of our family tonight, and a staff, and we've had so many wonderful staff over the years, and I wish all the staff that we've ever had could be here with us tonight. And we have a few that have been here with us before, and our current staff. I'm so proud of that. But behind every successful man is a surprised mother-in-law. But in addition, is usually a wife, and so I'd like to thank my wife for the matriarch of Powell Chiropractic. However, the purpose of tonight's dinner is to honor you, our patients. And we were talking earlier, and I think we probably have had between 30, 35,000 new patients in the last 50 years. That's a community. And as a result of that, our practice grew and grew and grew to the point we kept hiring more doctors because we couldn't see all the people. And I understand what it's like, because I lived during prejudiced times as a chiropractor. It was very difficult. Today it's much easier. Still there's prejudice. But early on it was really tough to be a chiropractor 50 years ago. And so the patients that came to us and hopefully got well and understood what it is we actually do, and then they have the courage to go out and tell other people. It wasn't easy. But that's because the practice grew because of people like yourself, who you got well or you got improvement, you were grateful for that, and as a result, you couldn't wait to tell your family or friends to come in. And that's how it has grown, because the opposite has tried desperately to destroy us over these years, and it didn't work, because we have a wonderful practice, and so are thousands of other great chiropractic practices around the country because of people telling people. That's how it's worked. And I'm grateful. Thank you for all of you being here tonight. Thank you. Similarly to Dr. LaMarche's stories, some of you know my story. Well, my mother unfortunately got polio from the polio shot in 1955. And I was 10 years old, and the story I recall as a kid, my older sister would help me get dressed for school, because back in those days you had to be dressed properly to go to school. And so we would go in, we'd have to roll my mom up on her side and tuck pillows behind her so she could see us if we were presentable to go to school. That's how I remember my mom from a polio shot. And this was Cleveland Clinic, and they had diagnosed with all sorts of other things, but after several months they said what they've discovered, because they didn't have computers of course, is that a small percentage of people actually got the disease, and it's unfortunate but you're one of those. And so there's nothing you can do about it. Well, our neighbor, who happened to be an RN, said, why don't you go to my chiropractor? So she said, fine. So as I remember as a child, he was on the second floor of a drugstore in Bedford, Ohio. We lived in Cleveland. And I remember my dad and my uncle, different times, carrying my mom up the stairs, because they didn't have an elevator, to get adjusted. And he would put her on the table and he would adjust her, go back and take care of other people, come back and adjust her again. And like Jill, he probably adjusted her 6 times a day. And in 6 weeks, she was on her feet. And she was walking unencumbered at all. And so my mom, who was, though some of you knew my mom, she was a firecracker, and she decided then I'm going to be a chiropractor. And so, unfortunately, I had a couple of very serious spinal injuries as a kid, and so all my life I was getting adjusted after that. And so I was in 7th or 8th grade. There's a little girl behind me, was reaching for a book, and she dislocated her elbow. And I jumped up and adjusted it. The teacher said, "What did you do?" And I said, "Oh, I'm going to be a chiropractor." Where I got that nerve to do that, I don't know. Today I would probably be arrested for abuse or something. And so that was the beginning of my career, and kind of cool. And so, luckily, I had the great guidance and encouragement. And so I'm a storyteller, and I have to be careful because I can talk all night long on stories. But interestingly enough, a dear friend and mentor of mine told me one time, he said, "You know, you didn't choose to be a chiropractor. God chose you to be a chiropractor." And I now know that for sure. That was his reason for my existence. And so we were married. We had 2 children. I graduated from college. I had no job. I had no money. I had no insurance, nothing. Both of our kids were born without insurance. So we paid for years the doctor bills. And so my very first official patient called to come in. And a great chiropractor allowed me to use his office at night when he wasn't there, because I worked a job during the day to try to feed ourselves. And so her son called and said, "I want to bring my mom in." Her name was Mrs. Whitmore. And he was a Canton City policeman. So he brings her in a police car to the office. I'm intimidated. This woman comes in with a dislocated shoulder. And she was an old lady, probably in her 50s. I was 25, so I thought she was old. And so I did what you're supposed to do, an exam. And in school, when they were teaching us how to deal with dislocated shoulders, I thought, I'm never going to treat that. I'll send them to the emergency room. Well, you got 2 kids and you're starving. Guess what? I'm going to work on this lady's shoulder. So I grab a hold of the shoulder, and as I'm moving it around, trying to do the right thing, I started to pray. God, you got to help me, because I don't know what I'm doing. And the power that made the body healed the body, and clunk, the shoulder went into place. And she thought it was a miracle, and I knew it was a miracle because it wasn't. Well, the son was so enamored, he thought, what a fabulous doctor. Next thing you know, I was treating half the Canton Police Department. It was a great career beginning, but then I knew God was on my side. An old saying that, God heals the patient, but the doctor gets the fee. And so we do the best we can, but it's really true with our doctors. They're well-trained, and they're skilled, and they know what they're doing. But if you don't talk to people about your experience to encourage them to come in, there wouldn't be any practice. So it's really, you're the heroes, those of you that send people to us. It really means a lot. It really has. And so I wish I had more stories to tell, but that Mrs. Whitmore was the beginning of my career. And as things happened, and I was a born-again chiropractor. Once I knew what I was going to do, I was on fire, and I couldn't stop. So I'll tell you one other story. There was a little girl that was electrocuted, and some of you may even remember that story. Her name was Leanne Geyer. She's gone now, but this was in the city of Canton. It didn't have zoning and electrical things the way they are today. And she was in a crib at 2 years old, and there was a light bulb coming down, and she bit the cord, and she was electrocuted. And the doctors here know what the term is called, apostatenus. And that's what the electrocution is, that they are wrapped up like this in an arch, and they're frozen. So a big article in the paper about this little girl, and they wanted to raise funds for her physical therapy. So I wrote her a letter and I said, I'm a chiropractor and I would recommend the physical therapy, but I'll donate chiropractic care to you, your daughter, if you'd like to bring her in. And never heard from him. Some months later, a relative was visiting from Florida, and he said to the mother, I put my back out and I go to a chiropractor in Florida. Can you recommend somebody up here? She said, the only chiropractor, we got a letter from this guy. Why don't you call him? So we came in and I fixed up his back. And he said, I have to get her in here. I said, bring her in, absolutely. Donna was my staff person at the time. We just got started. We'd only been in practice a few months. And parents brought in this little girl, and they carried her in like this, in a board. She was frozen. She had a scream on her face, like this. She had to have a feeding tube, and her creases were all bleeding because she couldn't open up her arms. And I thought, oh my God in heaven, I never dreamed it would be this bad. What am I going to do? So I took an x-ray of her, of course. And while I'm in the dark room, in the old days, you had to dip the tanks, to get the films out like a photographer has to do. And of course, I'm praying in the dark room. So we come out and I got her down on an adjusting table, and she was crying and screaming, and I pried her arms away and I adjusted her upper cervical and lower neck. And I said, that's all for today. And so I was setting them up on regular visits. I'm going to see her 3 times a week for 3 months or something like that, free. And if she got well, great. If she doesn't, we tried. So I'm in there talking to the mom. The dad takes Leanne out into the waiting room. He says, oh my God. And I thought, she's dead. Lord, if what you did was help me put this poor child out of her misery, then this is what's happened. We went out there, her arms were like this. We all started to cry. Well, it's the end of the story. They put me on WHBC radio, the Ronnie Furman show, if anybody's old enough to remember her. I was on the show telling the story about Leanne's chiropractic care. A sorority put together a fundraiser, a dance in Massillon to raise money for chiropractic care. And patients came in, was Leanne here today? I wanted to see, because it was the talk of the town. And it was, my heart's desire was to try to help this little kid. Had no clue what I was doing. But I knew then, of course, and I've been reminded all my life, that God heals the patient. We report for duty, we do the best we can. And we're trained to do that, and that's what we do. And people get well and some people don't. And we wish everyone had the opportunity to get chiropractic care, even though not everybody does. But it's only because of patients like yourselves who will tell and share that story with others. I could go on for all night, but however, what we have is a little gift for you, everybody that came tonight. And I wrote a book. It's called The Cause of Health. And I've been working on this only 30 years. And fact is, as you might see, Donna put some of old scrapbooks and books we put out over the years. And we used to do what we called Our Patients Speak. And so patients would write a testimonial and some beautiful stories. And as I go back and have gone over those in the last couple of weeks, it's heartwarming to know how many people's lives have been changed. And the babies that we've seen, and as if you were in the office or any time, you'll see there's babies that just came right from the hospital to be checked. And with children like that, the miracles that take place, it's unbelievable. Michelle, everybody here probably knows Michelle. Her nephew, one more story. Her nephew, who's probably 35 years old today, I don't even know, but just a baby, and all he did was cry. Screamed all the time for 5 weeks. And Michelle's mom, who was a patient and a dear friend, had 5 kids of her own. And she said, the doctor said, there's nothing wrong with the kid, it's the mother is hyperactive or whatever. So grandma comes in with the baby and said, now listen here, Dr. Powell, I've had 5 kids, and I know there's something wrong with this kid. And I know you could probably help him, because we've had him at Akron Children's, and they can't do anything with him. So, of course, as God provided, I adjusted them. They left. So next, it was Friday, as I recall. Saturday morning, the phone rings. It's Michelle's dad. Dr. Powell? Yes, I think. Oh my God. What did I do? You are the best doctor that ever lived. This baby slept all night and hasn't cried since that first adjustment. That's like, now, for moms who had gone through that, you know what a struggle it is to deal with a screaming, crying baby, and their neck may be out of place, subluxated, because coming through the birth canal and the delivery process hurts necks easily. And so our patients that are pregnant, while they're getting care, want their babies to be checked immediately. And if they're okay, then they're okay. If not, get the adjustment as quickly as possible so they don't end up with long-term problems. And the old-time osteopaths used to do that before they went to the other side. See, when they would deliver a baby, and back in those days, all GPs just delivered babies. You didn't have to be a specialist to deliver a baby. But the osteopaths would do cranial work, which I know many of you know Dr. Jim does that, molding the skull, checking the neck, checking their legs and pelvis. And it's like, it should be done every day. But it's been so restrictive of us being part of a healthcare system, and it's terrible. And so we wish it was different, but it's not. But it's changed. It's so much better than it once was. And I am grateful. Also, Dan Damon is here tonight doing a video of our speakers. And if you'd like to tell a story and do it on the video, he's here to help you with that. We have a gift for you. And I'm so grateful, truly, truly grateful for everybody here. And I know many of you, and some of you I don't know because I haven't practiced in a while. But with our doctors, Dr. Robert in nutrition has changed the whole complexion of the practice. A little girl came up to me earlier tonight and introduced herself and said, I don't know what I would do if it wasn't for him. I had a hormone imbalance, and he's been to all kinds of doctors, and no one could figure out what to do. He put me on just the right herbs, and I've never felt better in my life. And many of you that know that or have had family that struggled with imbalanced hormones, it's a tragic problem because it affects your personality, affects your marriage, it affects your life, how you raise your kids. And the herbs and nutrients don't cause any side effects. No drugs involved. Don't put you on a zombie drug so you don't know that you're sick, where you can get to the cause of the problem. So how grateful am I? So thank you, everybody, for coming. God's blessing to each one of you and your family. Daryl.
Dr. Powell,
Yes,
I
sir.
just have one quick thing to say.
Okay.
I know so many good and nice things about you. I can't start because we'll be here next Saturday.
Thank you, brother. Interestingly enough, thank you, Daryl. I couldn't find it. We looked for it, but we had a book. I kept a book of each new patient I had, and Mrs. Whitmore was number 1. Daryl Harper, the man you just heard speak, he was like number 4. And I was a kid, 25. He was about 32. And he had injured his neck and broken a vertebra that went undiagnosed. And I treated him for that and kept him working at the Hoover Company as a foreman for 35, 40 years. Never missed work. Had problems, but we kept him going, which I'm grateful. Another young fellow back here, Danny, was our 7th patient that we ever saw out of thousands and thousands of people. And Danny was a kid. He was probably 18 when he came to me. And I was 25. And we've become great friends. He's been a great patient, sends lots of people, and he was a maintenance man at the hospital and ran the whole system at one time. So he did a lot of work for us in our office, as in our house, painted our house for us and everything else. And great friend, a great patient. Thank you all so much. God bless you. Good night.
So we've asked a few patients that if they would be so kind as to share a story that they have, if they are willing. And so we're going to step away from the mic, and we're looking for that courageous first person that would like to step up and give us a little information. Come on up, young lady. We have our first candidate.
You know it's me. Hi, everybody. As everyone else was speaking, I was thinking, well, I want to say this, and I want to say this, and I want to say this, and this, and this. But 40 years is a long time. That's how much time I've known Dr. Powell, too. And like on the video I did for your Christmas, my mind is blank. All those thoughts are gone. But when you were talking about the little girl, well, I'm in a safe place, so I can say this without hurting you. He's taught me so many things. Every day I help someone, even if it's only this much, and I can't even move my hands anymore. The things he taught me I can use with my brain and not my hands. But about the baby, and I was talking to him a long time ago. Well, they won't bring their baby, blah, 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 the fear and all that. And he goes, you got this. He goes, you can do this. You won't hurt the baby. And he showed me what to do.
As a massage therapist.
As a massage therapist. But even just as me, he goes, your hands can see it, and it'll come out your hands. You told me that. And there's just so much. And I've been making a list and thinking about writing it down, but I'm so lazy and procrastinating and I can't decide, do I start at the top and work my way down to write down all the things he's taught me, or do I start at the bottom and work my way up? And all the stuff in between, because there's so much. So I decided, Dr. Powell, I don't want to write it down, but I would like to come have a little chat with you, and we can talk about you. Oh, I forgot that one. Thank you, I love you. And all the other doctors, too.
I guess I'm not going to get out of this one. Hello, everybody. So my name is Dan Bartko, and I'm 51, around the corner, October. And I've been an auto detailer of the company in town here called Autobahn since 1992. And it's been a brutal 30-some years of pounding out cars. And out of that, I ended up with straight neck syndrome, which everyone here probably knows what that is. We're supposed to have something called lordosis throughout our entire spine. And I lost it in my neck. So my neck is straight, and so my cervical discs take all of the abuse. So you add motocross for 30 years and lifting weights and just being a dude, and your discs blow out, so I find. And mine did. C6, C7, vertical disc had ruptured, and it was pretty intense. 2 surgeons, and hope of healing like on my own with no surgery was looking pretty grim. And as busy as my shop is, I got depressed. It was ugly. Because I thought, okay, so surgery, I go through the neck, it just doesn't sound right to me. And I was on the internet, and I saw this disc recovery program, and I'm like, well, shit, that's in, oops, sorry. Can you edit that? Boop, that's in Canton. That's right around the corner from my shop. So it turns out I went over to visit, and I know people there, and people knew me there, and this looked like this was really gonna work out, except chiropractic, I don't know, it's not always something that everyone just is like, oh yeah, until it works, and someone tells you about it, like you guys are saying. So I went and Jim and I worked on this thing, and I'm back to putting 10 to 12-hour days in at my shop again. I don't have any pain. I don't have to have any surgery. And about the only thing I haven't tried yet is throwing a leg over a dirt bike again. But I think we have a little way to go yet. But I'm sold. I mean, I feel fantastic. So, thanks, Doc. You did it, man. Oh, and the staff, everyone's amazing. I forgot that. I love you guys.
Hello, I'm not Rudy. My name is Pino Spizzichini. I am a patient at the Powell Chiropractic Clinic. And my message is that we have heard some beautiful stories tonight. I mean, just borderline miraculous. But I would like you to reflect upon the fact that what they do brings the miracle into everyday life, in normalcy. My story is very simple. There's nothing special about it. I developed allergies because I began to embrace the American diet. Sorry, I didn't mean to. I went to the doctor on a Monday morning because I've been sneezing my head off for the whole weekend. I couldn't figure out why. And he told me that you have allergies. I said, I do. Never had them before. He says, well, you do now. Well, what happened? You have allergies. Okay, great. So I live with allergies, and I couldn't do anything about it. I just, took a little Canalog shot every year, which, it's not the best thing for you, but it was the only relief I could get. They were really, ragweed allergies are really bad if you suffer from them. And one day at work, I hurt my back. And a colleague of mine said, when he saw me walking in there at a 45-degree angle, he says, hey, you can do something about that. I said, what is that? He says, well, you can go see a chiropractor. I said, a what? A chiropractor. Okay. I said, what is that? He says, well, here's a card. He gave me a card. It was one of the free evaluation cards you can get from the Powell Clinic. So I decided to go a couple days later because I was desperate. I was really in pain. And so I went to the clinic, and I filled out the papers. They brought me back, and I'm sitting there waiting. And as I'm waiting in the waiting room, there's a chart in front of me, and there's a spine and the rest of the body, only the bones. And I'm looking at all these little arrows that go into little boxes, and I'm telling you what these little bones are responsible for. And somewhere in the C area, 2 or 3 of these little bones are responsible for allergies. Well, sorry, Jimmy. I mean, I was a bit skeptical, so as you remember very well. I'm like, come on now. So I've seen several doctors. They gave me Allegra. They gave me all kinds of fancy names, the ones you hear on the commercials with all the side effects. You're going to lose your liver tomorrow morning, or your eyeballs are going to fall out. But those are the things that were given me, and then they didn't work. I mean, they didn't do anything for me. So I just, I walked into the room, and I wasn't even worried about my back anymore. I was really focused on this information about this allergy because I've been suffering from it now for like the better part of 10 years. And, along with that, you will get 3 to 4 sinus infections that were a direct result of those problems. And so it made me pretty miserable. It was a major problem. So I walked into the room, and Jim was there, and so he says, come on in, starts talking to me and introducing himself, telling me about chiropractic care. And he says, well, I said, doctor, I got to ask you a question before we do whatever it is that you do. He said, I was just reading your chart out there, and do you actually believe that C3 or C2 can fix my allergies? He goes, well, don't worry about that. Let's take care of your back first. And so he puts me on the table, he adjusts me, and then he goes, well, let's take a look at your neck now. So, he puts me there, he cracks my neck, which was quite a shocking experience, to be honest with you. I mean, let's be honest, all of us are exposed to, allopathic care. And so you diagnose, you prescribe, and then you perform. They don't just manipulate your spine the way he did. And so it was a little bit of a new experience for me. So he's done. He looks at me, he says, do you have a box of Kleenex in your car? I go, not particularly. Why? He says, well, so there is a Rite Aid down the street. He says, I suggest you stop and pick up some. I said, do you have any water in your car? He says, yeah, I keep a jug. I said, I drink a lot of water. He says, well, that's good. He says, keep drinking. Actually, if you can't, buy some more water. I said, why is that? He says, well, just do that. So I left the office. I felt a little bit better, but I had a problem, so it took a couple more adjustments to fix it. But the interesting part is that I wasn't able to drive 1 mile without stopping at the Rite Aid store and buying 2 boxes of Kleenex. All of a sudden, I began to drain. It was just a very strange experience, surreal. And it's like you're sitting there like, okay, I can't function this way. And it took me 2 to 3 days to, I don't know, there was a backup there. I mean, it's like, it was a problem in the sewer and it wasn't flushing. So it took me 2 to 3 days to clean up the pipes. But I gotta tell you, this has been now 25 years, Jimmy. I have not had a single sinus infection ever since, okay? And I don't have any more back problems either. So the point is that there's no miracle here, but there is a miracle. It is not something that goes and breaks the laws of nature. It is something that walks right along with the laws of nature. The marvel of chiropractic care is it doesn't have to be a miracle to be a miracle. So that's all I wanted to say.
I'm Jackie, and I'm also an LMT. We do our own kind of magic. I'm a little more mystical. I talk more about energy and the moon cycles, but Robert Powell can get with me on that. So a little bit about me. My mom was a Marine, and I grew up in Okinawa, and my dad's an amputee. My sister's in the Army, my brother's in the Marine Corps, and I served in the Navy. So been around a lot of that. Thank you. I, did not have any kind of experience with frontline, trauma or anything like that. I had my own trauma from the military in a different format, but, I can have a lot of respect for the people that have served and the people that have been in my life, including my ex-husband. My current husband loves to hear about, who's a Navy SEAL and a really good friend of mine, high school sweetheart. So anyway, I just wanted to touch on that to say that I think that if you can get that care for the VA, it's going to be so powerful. I know firsthand what dealing with the VA is like, and it's terrible. So that would be very beautiful. Also, my little personal story is what Dr. Robert was talking about. I'm the one with the hormonal issues. The real front line for me was after having my second baby. Becoming a mother is this enormous responsibility that's so beautiful, but there were all of these changes that started happening, and I started feeling really outside of myself, and I'm sure all the women who are mothers in here can relate. So, I was really angry. I was dealing with rashes. I was dealing with an autoimmune disorder that came on out of nowhere, all while trying to nurse my daughters. And so I did not feel like myself. And I had heard about Powell Chiropractic from my hairdresser. And I thought, I will try anything. And she was telling me how he put her on these herbs, and then she just felt better. When she stops taking them, she doesn't feel good. And so she's like, I don't know why I stopped taking them. I need to take them again. And so I made an appointment, and I met with Dr. Robert, and immediately being in his office, just this sense of, wow, this is what, a doctor's visit is supposed to feel like. This is someone who listens to me. This is someone who asks the right questions. This is someone who cares about what he's doing. And so I've been seeing him for over a year now. And each time I would see him, you know, getting on the supplements, the whole food supplements, the things that, again, don't have any side effects, you can feel the difference. And my girlfriend used to tell me all the time, she'd ask me, well, how do you feel when you take it? And this was when I was taking, you know, stuff from the grocery store. I don't know. I think it's helping. I'm not sure. And when I started taking the supplements from your office, I noticed a difference. And I could literally feel when I didn't take them how my body would feel. And so I knew that they were doing something. This wasn't just something that I would take mindlessly. This was something that I was like, okay, this is helping my body. I feel it in my body. And now, fellas, my menstrual cycle is amazing. Yes, you're welcome. I know you have the capacity to listen to this, so hear it. I am synced up with the moon, and I feel amazing. I don't have cramps. I don't have bloating. I'm not angry anymore, right, Mark? Okay? I don't feel, you know, irrational. I don't feel in my head. I feel amazing. I feel present for my children. I feel so good. You know, the other day I was like, oh, it's a new moon. I'm probably going to have a menstrual cycle, but I don't even notice. And that's amazing stuff here, okay? This is a miracle. My entire life having terrible, terrible cycles, you know, and within less than a year, seeing real tangible changes, not just in the way my body feels, but in the way that I can interact with my family, is huge. And so the last thing I'll share is that in June, I was in a bad car accident, and thank God my 2 little girls were not in the van with me. But I was on my way home from massage therapy, my friend, and my husband got off work early, and he asked to take me out to dinner. And I was so worried about breaking my elimination diet. I didn't want to risk my health. So I decided, no, babe, let's just go home and play with the kids. And then I got hit by a truck. So if your husband ever asks you to go out to dinner, just take him up on the frickin' offer. So immediately, you know, bruised, banged up, feeling terrible in a cervical collar, I messaged Dr. Robert, and I'm like, I just got into an accident, but I know you're gonna give me the best advice. I know that you're gonna help me heal. And I don't know why in my mind I was thinking that he was like a chiropractor too. This guy's like a walking Google search engine. Literally, you ask him anything. And also I can tell you, I have a stack of Powell Chiropractic business cards on my shelf in my massage room. And I'm constantly telling all of the women, all of the men in my office that come to see me about my experience, about women who complain about their cycle, about, you know, people who are experiencing pain or diet issues. I'm constantly referring. And so I really do believe in, you know, the power of the word of mouth, the community. So then after that accident, I started seeing Dr. Jim and Dr. Knoll over here. And again, the care, the knowledge, the connections that were made, you know, from pain in my low back to a simple change of not crossing my legs. That's right, fix yourself, ladies. Cross the ankles. You know, changing my sleep pattern, all of those little changes, and I was waking up pain-free. I mean, I'm 35, and I was waking up every day like in searing pain, you know, crying because I was in pain and just going outside thinking, is this what my life is gonna be like from now on? And no. So now I am pain-free. I haven't quite been released from therapy, but I'm working on it. And I just feel really blessed. I feel really blessed to have been in contact and, you know, have been referred to this beautiful family who genuinely cares. And I just wanted to get up here and tell my story about it because I wanted everyone to know, and I wanted you to know and to hear it, that like you really are making a difference, like in every single, and it's just a trickle, like ripple effect of like a 6 degrees of separation. If you think of all the people in the room that know somebody, that knows somebody, that knows somebody. So keep doing what you're doing. I'm a yoga instructor as well, and I will tell you that before my body now, compared to before the accident, I feel better in my body now. I feel more awareness, more mobility, more strength in my body than I did before my car accident. So that is like a true testament to the work that is being done. And I thank you guys so much. I really appreciate it. And by the way, they're paying me in free supplements to say this.
But, I've known Dr. Powell since I've been 15 years old. He changed my life. He changed a lot of my family, extended family. My grandchildren, I would get calls from school and they would say, I don't know what's wrong, they just said they needed adjustment. So we would see them from birth all the way up to through pregnancy. So even when you're having babies and stuff like that, or you know people that are having babies, during the pregnancy, your body's going in every which direction. You keep alignments and it makes it a lot easier. Fortunately, I got to watch a lot of you, like even Pastor, I thought he always walked like this until he was under care a little bit more, and I saw he could actually stand up straight. But I got to watch so many of you come in and not be able to move or go through a lot of things and get better. And it was awesome to see it on that part too. And Dr. Robert, I look at him as a little boy, and his knowledge is unbelievable, what he can prescribe, what he knows, and when he just rambles out, that he knows. And Dr. Jim and Dr. Knoll have been awesome in the footsteps of Dr. Powell. Dr. Smith, I'm going to acknowledge him too, because patients had always still asked about Dr. Smith, and he was a good asset to the office, and the whole family, has just really, really been a blessing. And I looked at Donna and Dr. Powell of, how many years I've known them, and they're a true example of love and a relationship and a family and mother and talking to children and grandchildren and everything like that. So I thank Powell's for everything that they did in order to get me to where I'm at. So thank you, and thank you all you wonderful patients.
It's such an honor to be part of this practice and to be able to see all these lives that have changed. The next speaker is actually going to close us up. And my dad started the first and still the only complimentary chiropractic center at a soup kitchen, downtown Canton. Pastor Don Bartow is going to close us up with a prayer, and he's going to tell us a little bit about the Total Living Center. The gift bags that you have, there's a little flyer in there, and it's about the Total Living Center, and it's a very special place to Powell and all of us. So, Pastor, if you'd come up, tell us a little bit about the TLC, and then close us in a prayer.
Well, first of all, say a word about chiropractic. When I first went there, I was real short. I'd only been going about 6 months, and look at me. Not bad. Well, now back to the Total Living Center. I happen to be a Presbyterian pastor. And after serving 43 years in the pastorate, I felt there's something wrong. We're not seeing people helped the way they ought to be helped. And God spoke to me to start a ministry to the poor and to leave the Presbyterian ministry. I'm still a Presbyterian pastor. I just look like the other network. But the thing is that when I started that, I had no idea what to do or anything else. And God has led. and it has developed into a huge ministry to the inner city and to the poor. But one night, over 20 years ago, a gentleman called me and said, "I'm Dr. Powell." I never heard of Dr. Powell. He was very famous, but I had not heard of him. And he said, "I'm a chiropractor, and I'd like to start a free chiropractic clinic at the Total Living Center." I said, "How much will it cost?" No, he said, "I want to start a free one." That's wonderful. And he came and started a free chiropractic clinic in our Total Living Center. And I tell you, then I thought, I'll get different chiropractors to come and we'll get more hours. I contacted a number of them, couldn't get any of them interested. Only Dr. Powell, and then later his son Jim, and then Chip come down, and then comes Robert with the nutritional aspect. And they have stayed there ever since. I was stopped to get a light for my car one day, and a man said, "You're Pastor Bartow." I said, "Yes." And he said, "You don't know me, but I know you, because I go to your center," or I did. And he said, "I was very, very ill. I took all kinds of medicine. I was getting addicted to things, everything, all kinds of pain and everything." And I went down there, and a Dr. Chip started to take care of me. And he said, over a period of some weeks and all, I was completely healed. And he says, "I now have a full-time job right here." He was the guy waiting on me at the clerk and from the clinic. But that's just one of the many there at the center. But also at the Total Living Center, we have a beauty salon, we have a laundromat, and we have meals, we have luncheons, we have groceries by the hundreds of pounds, all this stuff going to help the needy. And we encourage you to keep us in your prayers. And there's a flyer that tells a bit about us. I'd like to also say that as I then started to go to the chiropractor, because when Dr. Powell called me, he didn't realize what kind of shape I was in, because I had great pain. I could hardly get around. When I get downtown to a meeting, I would try to find a spot where you bring the wheelchair up on the sidewalk from the street. I didn't want to step from up on the curb because it hurt my back so bad. And I just was terrible. But I decided to go. Now my wife was the assistant to one of the leading cardiologists in the city. We had no use for chiropractors. All we knew is what we had heard. And what we heard was worse by far than what I've heard about Presbyterians. But anyhow, they went with that, and I decided to go. I began to get the treatments. And then my back was so bad, and I discs a mess and everything. So Dr. Jim referred me to a chiropractor with one of these machines that stretches you both ways at the same time and then squeezes you back together. Well, that was me. So I went and took 21 treatments on that. And on the 21st treatment, after every treatment, it would be terrible. I couldn't hardly walk. But I believed the Powells. And now I took a lot of belief, but you kept hurting all the time. And this last 21st, after that I get up and I walk better, and the more I walked, the better I felt. And you know, I haven't had any pain in that back. Well, I've had some people give me pain in the back, but I haven't had any pain in the back since that treatment. That's been over 20 years ago. And then, on top of that, in 2005, I had congestive heart failure. Came back from Texas. I've been in Texas and in the hospital. And it must have been pretty bad, because 3 weeks later, when I went back to the clinic to be checked out, the nurse said to me, "I never thought I'd see you again." Because when they took me in at middle of the night, emergency, she felt I wouldn't make it to the hospital 30 miles away. But I did. And then when I left, he gave me directions, you know. Now you gotta be really careful. Don't lift over 5 pounds. Don't do this, don't do that. You're gonna have to change. Well, strange but true. When I got back in town, I learned that there's not only chiropractors at Powell's, but there's a Dr. Robert. And I went to Dr. Robert, and if you know, it was amazing. He would prescribe this or that. I started taking. And before I knew it, my heart was hard, everyone. I just keep going all the time now. And it's just, Robert, I can't say enough for you, what you do. And I haven't yet figured out what you do, but I keep taking those pills. And thank you. But the Powells have meant so much to us. I can't say enough for them, and I write for them when I get a chance. I talk every chance I get to say to people, try the chiropractor, you know, and because, you know, you go to the doctor, sometimes you give you medicine, they say, now, be careful with this, it could become addictive. Now, that's good news. But they do it. And Dr. Jim, to you and Dr. Chip and your dad and Dr. Powell here, just keep going. In fact, I could be wrong, but I think since you met me, you look younger. And I thought, you know, when I get old, I hope I look young too. Okay, thank you very much, thank you.